Hello and welcome back to Underlab. So I've noticed that people often hold one of two opinions about two particular characters in Undertale, namely Toriel and Asgore. One side argues that Toriel was right in leaving Asgore and condemning him for his actions, while others seem to believe that Toriel is a hypocrite. Well, I want to give my take on it and also speculate as to whether it's possible they'd ever remarry, or if they potentially even have already by the end of the game. Of course, I don't necessarily know the answer, though it's possible to speculate off the few small pieces of evidence we do have. Let's take a look then, and if anyone sees Sans, be sure to tell me. Before speculating, let's recap on what we know for sure. A long time ago, Toriel was married to Asgore, and the pair seemed to be deeply in love with one another. There wasn't a complaint in the world between them both. And of course, their love was so strong that they even won the nose-nuzzling competition of '98. Which I'm sure is a very prestigious award in monster culture. They loved each other so much that they even had a son, the tragically destined Azrael Dreamer. The entirety of the Monster Kingdom loved the three, particularly Azrael, and it seems nothing could possibly go wrong. Well, unfortunately, Azrael had to go and mess it all up by going to the surface and getting himself killed. Silly Dreamer. Anyhow, naturally this caused something of a stir within the underground, and in no place did conflict arise more than between Asgore and Toriel. The pair suffered a heated disagreement. While Asgore decided that the war on humanity had to be restarted, Toriel wanted nothing to do with it, demanding that the monsters remain pacifist towards the humans who fall underground, despite the lopsided treatment that the monsters received. The pair disagreed on this so much that eventually they were forced to go their separate ways. Toriel simply couldn't live with such a conflict in interest with her own husband. And sadly, that's where their union ended. Asgore remained within the capital named New Home, while Toriel returned to the monster's old home, named Home, to live in the ruins, where Asgore and Toriel had once lived together before. Things would never be the same again. There was no longer a queen of monsters and no heir to the throne. That would be the rather depressing end to the story, if the human never showed up. When we first meet Toriel, there's very little indication that she has any connection with Asgore whatsoever. Many players, including myself, likely had no idea what to expect from Asgore. It's only referenced that they're both dreamers a few select times before we encounter him, so therefore if we miss those occasions, it's no surprise that's a bit of a shock to discover that he closely resembles a male Toriel. I think there's a good reason for this. We're long kept in suspense as to the appearance of King Asgore, unless we've watched certain videos, so that we're surprised when we do finally encounter him. Having had a very mixed bag of opinions given as to the nature of the king, calling him anything from a dangerous murderer to a soft pushover, we'll either be expecting something terrifying and threatening, or fluffy and friendly. One way or another, when I first played through, I was surprised to learn that he's the same species as Toriel. Once we as players realise they were once in love, their tragic backstory begins to unfold. So it seems as if there's truly no hope for these two. Disagreeing on something so morally subjective, how could they ever see eye to eye again? Well, you may be glad to hear that there is some hope, and a few references within the game could indicate that they still hold affection for one another. I don't know about you, but personally I think the idea that they eventually make up and get back together is quite the welcome one. Let's start with the most obvious facts. Asgore is ready and willing to redeem himself for his actions, and seems to want Toriel back in his life more than anything. In fact, he clearly hasn't accepted her departure yet, even though it's been so long. He refers to her as his wife after defeating him, and though they may have never officially divorced, I don't think anyone other than Asgore thinks of them as still being together. Adding even further to this is how should you eat Toriel's butterscotch and cinnamon pie in front of him, his defences drop as he remembers her. That proves that Asgore thinks of Toriel so warmly and fondly that something as simple as the memory of her cooking is enough to make him emotionally distraught. It seems Asgore has never truly come to terms with what happened. That means at least one side of the argument is ready to forgive and forget. While many people know about what happens if you eat the pie while fighting Asgore, did you know that it's referenced before you even reach him? If you investigate the trash can in Asgore's kitchen, you find that it's full of scrunched up recipes for butterscotch pie. As far as I'm aware, Toriel only had the one. That means Asgore misses her and her cooking so much that he's been trying to work out how to cook it for himself. However, he's not the only one missing something material about his former partner. In Toriel's home we find unplanted flower seeds in a drawer. Who has a habit for growing an abundance of beautiful flowers? That's right, Asgore does. Both of them are trying to make up for the qualities of their significant other. They just lack the knowledge to do so. Evidently, the memory of the other is still strong within the minds of them both. This therefore is proof that Toriel is still thinking of Asgore, and with that in mind, there may be hope yet. Now I did say that it appears within the very ending itself that they may have reconciled. This is evidence when we see Asgore trimming a bush in the shape of Papyrus's handsome skull near Toriel's school. Clearly they've made up enough to tolerate being in each other's presence. Now, while this is in no way concrete proof that they've made up to the extent that they've remarried, doesn't it paint an optimistic picture when we think of the fact that we know they do both miss each other on some level? While Asgore clearly pines for Toriel more than vice versa, who knows? She may come around to his way of thinking eventually. The ending is purposefully left a little vague, I feel, so that it's difficult to say one way or another. There's one obstacle to all this that I've yet to mention. It appears to be a popular sentiment amongst fans that Toriel actually falls in love with Sans. Now, while they do seem to get along and be good friends, I have to wonder how exactly a relationship with a skeleton is going to work out. I suppose it's up to you to decide. Much of Undertale is left to interpretation, kind of like how we're left to interpret how cool Papyrus really is. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's hard to say for sure if the two get back together, as it's intentionally left for you to decide, I feel. However, things do look bright, as there's a few small indicators that Toriel may find it within her heart to forgive Asgore. She's such a kind monster to begin with, after all. In reference to what I said at the beginning of the video, that some people view Toriel as a hypocrite, this is because she derides Asgore for not venturing onto the surface with a single soul, while refusing to do that herself. However, I think that her point is more that now Asgore has declared war, he may as well go all the way and finish it swiftly. Whatever the case, we can only hope the best for both characters, and I'll see you next time.